Hello and welcome everyone to our January edition of the OSPI-WSAC Wednesday webinar series. My name is Kim Rakedahl and I currently serve at OSPI as the Program Supervisor Lead for School Counseling. I will be facilitating today's webinar, and again we invite you to participate with us by sending in questions you may have via the Q&A box as Tony just explained, and posting comments in the chat box if you have things you want to add to the discussion. We will do our best to answer your questions during the presentation, either directly to you electronically or by responding so everyone can learn. Each year, OSPI and WSAC, we collaborate on this webinar series, beginning with a survey of school counselors and other school staff to determine topics of interest. So based on that survey, today we will be sharing some system-level support ideas for elementary and middle schools to help with providing that tiered system of academic, career and college readiness, and social, emotional, and behavioral supports. Okay, so with this today, we have three wonderful presenters to share their expertise with you. I'm going to have them take a second to introduce themselves real quick in the order of what's on the screen.
Hi, my name is Sydney Reed. I'm an elementary school counselor, and I am here from Peter G. Schmidt Elementary in Tumwater, Washington.
Hi, my name is Lisa Cleveland. I am currently the WSCA Middle Level VP. I am currently an elementary school counselor at Riverbend Elementary, although prior to this year I've been at middle school my entire career, most recently at North Pines Middle School in Spokane Valley.
Good morning, my name is Sarah Weiss. Weiss is nice. I'm an Associate Director of College Access and Support at the Washington Student Achievement Council.
All right, so as you can see from today's objective slide, our presenters have some really great system-level support strategies to share with you today. Remember, this webinar is being recorded and should be posted on the Washington Student Achievement Council's Ready, Set, Grad website by the end of this month. All of the links that you will see as we go through each topic are live, and we really encourage you to further research any topics of interest and share this slide deck with colleagues who maybe were unable to take the time to be with us today. Okay, with that, I want to go ahead before our presenters jump in here and just talk really briefly about the common thread among all three of our topics today, and that's the best practice of providing services to students through a tiered support model. This first graphic is likely a familiar one to you of that triangle that represents a multi-tiered system of support and provides that foundational services for all students in the green area, that additional layers of support for some students in that yellow spot, and then intensive interventions for those few who need a team approach to supporting their needs. Dr. Trish Hatch, who is a nationally renowned school counseling graduate program director and advocate for our profession, has actually taken that MTSS Triangle to a new level, which you now see on your screen. In this graphic, Dr. Hatch incorporated the three school counseling domains. You can see them down there at the bottom, our academic, career and college readiness, and social emotional domains. She incorporated that into the multi-tiered system of support model to create this multi-tiered, multi-dimensional, or multi-domained system of support. So MTSS, because we don't have enough acronyms in education. As this graphic illustrates, and as many of us know, as we work to support students across the K-12 spectrum, if we truly want to create a system that supports the needs of the whole child for all of the kids in our care, we really need our districts to help us develop a comprehensive school counseling program that uses this framework. So just in terms of a reference and a support that you may want to use if you are looking to try to do something similar with your own school counseling program, in 2017, our state's comprehensive school counseling and guidance model was updated by the late and great Denise Eccleston, and I only say late and great, she hasn't passed away, she's just passed on from OSPI, so don't get anything started out there about that. But she worked with some folks to help incorporate ASCA's new national, or not new, but relatively new, updated national model best practices with our own state standards into an updated version of the Washington School Counseling and Guidance Framework. This framework that is linked here for you is full of resources and tools that you can use to take your counseling program to the next level. you're looking for a place to start developing a multi-tiered, multi-domain approach to providing comprehensive school counseling, this is a great resource for you and your school with all the spare time that you have coming up, I'm sure, this spring as we ramp up into testing and graduation season. Good times, good times. So with that being said, I am going to go ahead and turn the mic over to our first guest presenter so she can share her expertise and experience with focusing on social emotional supports with you.
Thanks, Kim. Okay, so Kim asked me to present on social emotional learning. And I previously was a high school counselor for 10 years at Tumwater High School before coming to Peter G. And at Peter G, I am the only counselor, and we have about 600 students, and we're pretty diverse socially, economically. We're about 45 to 49% free and reduced lunch, depending on the year. So just kind of give you a little bit of a snapshot of my school. So when I was thinking about what to talk about, I wanted to give you an idea of maybe a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 to take away, so that if you're listening to this, you just don't get, maybe you're doing one of these things and you could implement something else or get something to take away from this webinar on the social emotional piece, was my thinking. So at Peter G, when I came in, was right about the time when full-time kindergarten got implemented. And so when I came down to elementary, we saw a huge spike in behavior. The full-time kindergarten was what really, when I talked to other counselors and administrators, seemed to kind of be what happened with behavior in the classroom. And so when we have all these little things that we talk about, you know, adverse childhood experiences, trauma-informed practices, social emotional learning, there's all these buzzwords. But really, you need to look at the child. And so I kind of gave you that little picture of behavior. It's saying, you know, not just rewards versus punishment, but looking beyond that. And what is that little kiddo telling us? What's the behavior saying? And so we had to, at Peter G, really decide to stop being reactive, because that's what happened. We had these huge behaviors, and we were being reactive within it. So how do we become proactive and then, you know, be predictive? Because really, this is not going to stop. These behaviors are going to continue. So we wanted to create a school-wide social emotional learning program. What I looked at was calming corners and then a chill zone for my office. So looking at like the trauma lens, instead of saying what's wrong with the student, what has happened to the student. The great thing was at my school, I had a wonderful staff that supported me. I have a great administration, so we were able to do a lot of things within that. So the next piece that happened, I guess I'll talk about, would be the tier 1. And we really implemented that this year. So we kind of did things, I guess, a little bit backwards. But the tier 1 that I'm going to talk about would be the social emotional learning piece and kind of your base of your pyramid. So we implemented Sanford Harmony. When you look at social emotional, you're really looking at the process of which children and adults understand and manage emotions, set and achieve positive goals, feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain positive relationships, and make responsible decisions. So that's a lot of stuff going on for that social emotional. Sanford Harmony is really that tier 1. It has 5 themes: diversity, inclusion, empathy, critical thinking, communication, problem solving, and peer relationships. So it hits all of that. The best thing about the Sanford Harmony is that it's free. It's 100% free. They came to us, they came to our whole district for elementary, they trained us. All the information, not only did they give us as far as print as free, everything is online. It's available for parents. They also have it as an app on iPads, and it's available in Spanish. You can go to YouTube and you can put in Sanford Harmony, and they have their own channel. So if you want to get any information or get some little like 2 to 9 minute videos, you can do that. And they also have webinars on there, all free. So today I'm going to highlight some of the key strategies that we've embedded with practices for Sanford Harmony just this year. And again, we just started it this year. And as a result of these strategies, from September to December, our office referrals have gone down 24% overall. So it's a pretty big thing that's come about with us using this program. We're pretty excited about it. So the first piece to Sanford Harmony is Meet Up. So Meet Up is what happens in the classroom, and it's done by the classroom teacher. The other thing I have to say about Sanford Harmony would be that this is all implemented by the classroom teacher, which is a little bit different when you're talking from a counseling perspective. So it's built in their classroom, and it builds classroom community. It's been fun to watch the teachers take these materials and make them their own. The activities can be anywhere between 5 and 15 minutes a day. It's what works best for their teaching schedule. It's a time to share, to celebrate, and to problem solve and engage in activities. On the right is a picture of just different, of my school, showing different works that have happened through the meetup times. So meetup is just a great way for the teachers to create a really community within their classroom.
So Sydney, this is this sounds a lot like some of the other strategies that I've heard anyway with social emotional learning, like standing at the door and greeting all of your students when they walk in. Seems like there's some alignment here. What was the process like for you in getting your staff to buy into this, and how did that work for you guys?
Luckily for us, because we had such a spike in behavior, our school had made it one of our site team goals was social emotional. So we had kind of dipped our foot in a little bit, and we were trying to figure out, well, how do we do that? We had read a book the previous year. We had done some different things, but then as a district, my 6 different elementary school counselors, we had went to a training thinking, oh, we're going to this training to get social emotional, and we ended up at the Sanford Harmony training, and it was like we ended up just falling into this, and it was like, what? It's free? What? They're going to train us? What? It's all this information. So we went back and talked to our assistant superintendent, and then we talked to all of our principals, and our whole district adopted it. So all of our elementaries in our district are doing this year, and Sanford Harmony actually flew out trainers and trained our entire staff, all 6 elementaries. So it's been a really fun thing to watch, and my staff was just ready. I mean, because of our behaviors that were going on, they were ready.
Sure.
So it's been pretty easy.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. All right.
The second piece to Sanford Harmony would be Buddy Up. And this is where it's a daily practice. Teachers have a buddy chart in their rooms. Buddies are given weekly. And this is another thing. It just builds positive relationship. It promotes caring and empathy. And it has been one of the highlights of the program. We love Buddy Up. And things that you can do with your buddy, they can eat with their buddies. So they could have, when they go to lunch, a lot of times instead of doing boy line, girl line anymore, they say line up with your buddy. You can line up with your buddy to go to lunch. You can line up with your buddy to go to recess. There's little communication cards where you could pull your communication card out and ask a question, and you could talk about that question going out to lunch. My teachers have said that this program is easy to follow. They love the curriculum that comes with it. It's just been a fantastic addition this year. So that's the piece on Sanford Harmony.
Awesome. Tier 1. Sounds good. All right.
So tier 2, this would be kind of the first piece. This would be the first piece that I implemented when we started having these large behaviors. So the tier 2, it would be the response to. Oh, here we go. Sorry. Would be when you want to keep the student in the classroom. So when you have the kids that are really kind of still having those emotional flare-ups, but you don't want to send them out of the class. So this is where I would say you want to train your staff. This is where you want to have it set up that you're the ones, the staff is teaching the kids, and you want to give them the links, the sheets, and all the tools, but they're the ones that will build it, and it has to become theirs. The biggest part is to allow kids to learn, to make them feel safe, and to keep them in the class, being trauma informed, create a safe environment, teach them how to regulate, build and be connected, build that relationship. If you give your staff the tools, then they can have fun with it. So most of my staff has some type of calming corner in their room. Some of my team have created something really huge. Some of them have created something really small. A couple of my like second grade team has not only calming corners in their room, but then they've taken it out to our pod. So they have kind of their own room one, and then if the kid just can't quite calm down, then they move to the pod and maybe take an extra 5 minutes. So it just kind of depends on where they're at. But I train them to then train the kids, and that's how we've moved with that tier 2 system. So the tier 1 piece would be, and this is where I actually started, and this would be my chill zone, and this is for that 1 to 8%. This is when we were having the really big blow-ups. So these are the kids with that trauma, the emotional response, the intense event, and we need to get them out of the classroom and really teach them how to self-regulate. So this is where they have their own pass. And when we very first start this, the pass is for how many times a day they need it. And they get it, they have their name on it, they keep it. And there's multiple ways they can get the pass. We have a couple different systems. We have an MTSS team, we have a student intervention team, and then just depending on if a kid just automatically kind of starts to have some issues, we might put together a pass system. About 90% of my kids that use my chill zone are gen ed. I teach them how to use it, so you can kind of see they come in, there's a little data sheet, they have to mark down their name, there's a calming area where they have to pick how they're feeling, and then there's strategies that they use. And this is my office, so they know where their area is. My desk is one of the areas they're not allowed to go to or touch. And then once they press a timer, they get 5 minutes. And then once the timer goes off, they have to clean up. That's one of the rules. And then they go back to class. And we had kids last year that were literally room clearing. And by the time we implemented this chill zone in their pass system, they were back in class within a month and they were doing work. And it wasn't just the chill zone, but this was a big piece of it. And this year I probably have 20 kids on this chill zone pass, and it's working. Last year I had the flu and I was gone 3 days, and my principal said, it was amazing. These kids come in, they sign in, they hit the timer, and they're using it, and you don't even have to be there. So it's pretty cool. And it's been really fun to watch that grow over the last 4 years, and my staff trust that's working. So
I would only add, for those of you on the call, if you missed it, that King 5 News actually did a story when the superintendent here at OSPI put out his budget and had a request for more school counselors. And as part of that story, they profiled Sydney and her chill zone at Peter G. Elementary. So we've included a link to that video later on in the presentation. I'd encourage you to check it out, because being able to see it in action is pretty cool. So thank you, Sydney, for that. Just my little last plug is, how to stay up to date. It's great when we're able to get funds and go to conferences and do all that, but sometimes that costs a lot of money. Just really quickly, I have a district PLC that's amazing with my elementary school counselors. We pick a topic to research and update, and so we meet once a month. I had to do a pro cert when we were still doing that, and I had a pro cert group actually that has been amazing, and we still try to meet once a month, and I love it. And they're between high school, middle school, and elementary, and so we meet and we still try to talk about everything that's going on in our school lives. Ideas really quickly, I started following counselors on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and that has given me tons and tons of ideas. And you can save different ideas on Instagram, and you can save stuff on Facebook and Twitter. And now on Facebook, you can even save it like your Outlook. So I put that on the right side, and I have all kinds of different saved, like articles and regulation. And so you can start doing those things. The thing I would just say is, don't start beating yourself up, because sometimes, especially on Instagram, I'm like, why am I not doing all of
Mhm. But you can get so many fabulous ideas. And so I save lots of stuff and then go back maybe in the summer and grab an idea that you're going to then create. So those are some just great ways to not have to spend a lot of money.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that, Sydney, and I really love that you brought this up. Excuse me. I know on my Facebook I have liked the high school counselor network because that, of course, was my area of professional expertise, and it's amazing even now to still glean from them things that I might be wanting to pay attention to at the state level from this really great network. So this is great feedback and information on your strategies for social emotional learning, but also really appreciate that you brought in this idea of staying up to date. Wanted to just pause for a quick second because we have a minute here. If anybody has any questions for Sydney that you want to send in, now would be a great time to do that as we prepare to transition to the next speaker. So you may have just heard my alarm going off, so sorry about that. We're going to get set up for our next speaker here. Are there any questions, Ronnie, that anybody's got burning just yet? Okay. Well, and again, feel free to send them in anytime as folks are chatting with you and as you're hearing things that might spark an interest in getting some clarification. We'll try to answer those as we go. So thank you, Sydney, very much. We really appreciate you sharing your expertise with us on social emotional learning. It is the most requested topic from school counselors these days. So it's really nice to see how you put that into a tiered support system. Really appreciate that you've got some options and some things for our listeners to think about with getting staff involved too. So obviously any movement in any school is going to be more likely to be successful if all staff are bought in. So this is really great. Up next, we have Lisa Cleveland. She's currently serving as the WSAC Vice President for middle school, even though she also has transferred into the land of little ones. So she's a new elementary school counselor living in the Spokane area. So she is joining us remotely from across the state today. So thank you in advance, Lisa, for being here. She's going to share with you her experience in trying to utilize the Washington School Counselor Association's school counselor evaluation tool that was developed by the WSAC board and Andrew Kelly Batstone in particular. It's in sort of a pilot use as you can state right now. It's not anything that's been mandated, but we know that there's great opportunities for courageous conversations with our school staff and administrators when we have real clarity around the role of school counselors and what we should be doing in any building to be supporting students. So Lisa, we're excited to hear about your experience trying to use that tool. You're on if you want to go ahead and unmute.
All right, thank you. When people ask me why I chose to align with the Washington School Counselor Association School Counselor Evaluation Tool, my number one answer is about advocacy. But one of the best ways to advocate for our jobs is by having others, especially our administrators, understand the scope of our job. So by using an evaluation tool that aligns with best practices for school counseling, I feel that's an ideal way to show what we should be doing. The WSAC board developed a model school counselor evaluation that is aligned with the ASCA national model and our state standards for school counseling. You can access the template and an evaluation rubric on the resources page of the WSAC website, which is linked in the text on this slide. Something that you will notice when you go to that, it will send you a questionnaire before they send you the link to look at the evaluation tool. Something for you to notice is fill that out. It doesn't hold you to anything. It's just our way of tracking the number of people who may be using this. And then we can ask later, how did it go? Did you end up completing the process? For years, my district's evaluation has been a pretty general ESA evaluation that just tracked whether or not I'm meeting expectations. Usually there's a check box saying whether I met or did not meet the standard. There was not a lot of conversation about it besides, you're doing great. Once WSAC developed the school counselor evaluation tool, I knew using it would give me a chance to advocate for better accountability for myself and my counseling program. So just like we know that our students are most likely to thrive when they have positive relationships with staff, the same is true for our administration. If your current role isn't aligned with best practices, taking the time to build a positive collaborative relationship with your administrator is an important step to increasing support for that comprehensive school counseling program that can better meet the needs of all of your students, staff, and families. For the past 2 years, I've started off by taking the evaluation self-assessment. This year was much more difficult since I changed levels and am in a brand new building. I wasn't sure whether to evaluate myself on what I've done in the past, what I hope to do in the future, or my present level, which would not give a high ranking since I had not been very familiar with elementary level students and their needs. However, using the self-assessment led to a productive goal discussion with my new principal. Since administrators have been doing TPEP for years with teachers, both my former and new administrators have led the way in guiding my goals based on counselor standards. For example, when I completed my self-evaluation last year, I was completely overwhelmed because we have 8 criteria with 3 to 5 sub-criteria under each of the main 8. I thought I'd have to focus on each of these areas. However, my administrator told me the purpose is to pick one area, create measurable goals, and an action plan based on those goals. So in our discussion, we discussed each criteria, but then focused on what was most important for our school during that time. This year, my goal is to research and create a good elementary needs assessment that we can use to assess our needs so we can move forward with different programs. Last year, during my first attempt at using the WSAC School Counselor Evaluation Tool, we had richer conversations about standards and what data we could collect, what would show growth, etc., than I had ever had before. I was also fortunate in that my previous building has an instructional coach who worked with staff on their evaluation goals. She held data team meetings throughout the year, so I asked to be a part of a data team to go over my information at intentional times. Before that, I was not a part of those data team conversations. This kept the focus on my goals and gave me deadlines to collect and report my data, which I found helpful in keeping me on track with such a busy job. I was then able to use the data to advocate for more classroom guidance lessons. These had dwindled over the years, meaning my relationships with all students was not as strong. I showed through my data how there were many more individual sessions in my office when the number of classroom sessions decreased. By the end of last year, for my final evaluation, we opted to go back to the district's general checklist just to get it done. We didn't complete the WSAC School Counselor Evaluation in its totality because of the narrative my supervisor needed to complete at the end of the year when all of the other evaluations were also due. So while I feel my use of this evaluation tool is still a work in progress, I've noticed it's helped bring school counseling goals and strategies to the table. We've been able to implement more school-wide lessons and strategies through PBIS based on looking at data about the high number of students dealing with stress or anxiety. As I mentioned earlier, just using the tool as a framework to start the year led to greater discussion about my role and our goals. This year, as a first step toward using the WSAC evaluation tool, my principal and I have agreed to enter my goals into Pivot, which is used in the TPEP evaluation. Although my standards are not exactly the same as the teachers, we are able to communicate progress digitally and continue to have rich conversations about how I can use best practices to provide the best possible school counseling program.
You know, before I advance to your next slide, Lisa, I just want to say thank you to you for being courageous in being willing to talk about your experience with this. Obviously, many of us know that our administrators are often overwhelmed with their teacher evaluations, and it can be a really big challenge in a building for there to be that time to carve out to have these rich dialogues around what it is you can do to impact the systems within your building. But ultimately, I know the WSAC board was really intentional with developing this tool to try to make it so that school counselors could have that partnership with their administrators and really work together as a leadership team to provide systems change in a building. So just really appreciate your willingness to talk about that and to be able to admit that this wasn't a perfect process. You know, we all learn and grow as we do these kinds of things. So thanks for that, Lisa. I'm going to keep you moving on so I don't take up all your time. Here's your slide.
So the picture that is in front of you right now is the front of my counselor referral form. I created a Google form in which I can enter basic information that I've collected on this form. The information on this side helps me gather process data on how many students I see in my office, general topics discussed, as well as their perception data on how they were feeling before we connected. And this data has been eye-opening in many ways. I started doing this about 3 years ago, so I had 2 different years to compare at North Pines Middle School, and one of the things that was very eye-opening to me was comparing year to year. Last year I felt like I was completely overwhelmed. I'm spinning my wheels. I'm not getting anything done. And then once I compiled all of my data for first quarter and compared it to first quarter of the previous year, I noticed that I had had about 100 more individual sessions in the same amount of time. And it made me sit back and go, oh, no wonder I'm tired. Another thing that has been helpful is when I feel I've been ineffective, maybe you feel like your counseling session isn't going very well, but then the students give a really high rating. Maybe they started out as a 2 for their feeling, and then they end up rating it as a 5 by the time they walk out of here, and I would be surprised by that. And then topics that have come up regularly have led to discussions with administration about Tier 1 interventions that could address these issues. So I can reach more kids and they wouldn't need to come into my office as often. So for example, I have been here at Riverbend, I've been in each classroom every other week all year. I've taught a different calming strategy at the beginning of each lesson. This has decreased the number of students who refer themselves to my office, as the teacher can remind them of the calming strategy. So I've had teacher reports saying, this student wanted to come see you, but then I reminded them of your strategies, and so then they didn't need to do so. Once the student uses strategies, they often don't feel they need to see me right away. I also noticed a lot of recess issues coming to my office, especially at the 4th grade level. So I worked with the PBIS team to publish a handbook of playground rules that the recess supervisors carry with them, and then we taught to those rules. I also attended some recesses with a handbook to address common issues, and since probably Christmas break, I have not seen any recess issues coming my way. We also have plans for social skills groups based on the high number of social issues that come to my office. Often it's about making friends or keeping friends. So we are looking at that data as well. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Thank you. So this picture shows the back of my counselor referral form. The information on this side of my form helps me gather perception data on how students were feeling after we connected and whether or not the intervention or service I provided was helpful. Currently, in looking at all of my data, the average feeling before a counseling session has been 2.55, whereas the average feeling after a session is 4.22. So I have moved them up about 1.5 points on a scale of 5. 77.5% of the students rated me as being very helpful, and 18% rated me as a number 4, which is also in the very helpful category. Not one student has stated that I've not been helpful at all. These statistics are very encouraging for individual sessions. I also use my counseling calendar to show how many guidance lessons and small groups I've run so far, which would be our process data. So far, I've done 8 lessons in each of 17 classrooms. So far this year, I've not run any official small groups, but have had 2 informal group sessions with some 4th grade girls. And we usually end up doing some sort of an activity while we are processing some of the recess issues or social issues that they have had. The perception data from the classroom lessons is mostly informal at this time. Since we are working on our systems, I'm brand new to all of the curriculum. I'm still working on a more formal way to present my data on pre-post assessments, but my informal data shows I've had students give me thumb ratings to check for understanding. I might give some true-false questions. There have been a few students who consistently would give incorrect answers through this rating, so then I've pulled them separately to reteach lessons on personal safety. Something I did at the middle school level, I used an online website called Flickrs, which has been a great resource that's friendly to those of us who lack technology in schools. Basically, you just need a smartphone or tablet with the Flickrs app on it, and then on the Flickrs website, there are different QR code cards that you can give to each student. So you can do multiple choice, true, false questions, and on each end of the barcode, the students would move the barcode around so whatever answer they wanted to give is at the top. So I created banks of questions to check for understanding or survey perceptions before and after the groups. And then once you scan that information from your phone or tablet, the app will create the data for you. So I was able to use that a lot in my previous. As far as outcome data goes, the jury is still out. There are several students and families I've been working closely with on academics, attendance, and discipline. Since we're in a brand new school this year, there's not a lot of school-wide data yet, so we're gathering a lot of baseline data. And we've established a baseline with the individual students based on previous school performance. I feel encouraged about the progress we've made so far this year. Also, I can tell you that small group interventions at my previous school worked, which is how I was able to advocate for more groups. I was able to show that even by pulling students once a week for about 8 weeks, they were in class more during and after the groups were run because their attendance improved and discipline referrals decreased. So on the screen in front of you right now, these are some examples of graphs that I've created from my Google Forms based on the information that I shared earlier from my referral form. I make one of these each quarter to show the process data related to individual counseling. This is information from last year at North Pines. The bar graph shows the topics students came to see me about, and the trend graph shows the overall number of individual counseling sessions by month. Separated by grade level. Each color is at a different grade level. I gathered the information from my Google form, but then I downloaded it to Excel to clean things up and provide a more visual representation of my work, although Google Forms do create a very nice graph. With a little bit of time spent to track your work, these same types of graphs could be created to show your process data related to group counseling offered, the number of times you visit classrooms, including the topics you cover. All of these visuals can be great advocacy tools for you in working with your administrator to align your program with best practices and provide evidence of your efforts to serve your students. All right, next slide. I think I'm done, actually. There we go. So another way to advocate for your role is to be proactive in assessing student needs. As I said earlier, that's something I'm working on currently with my elementary school. But last year and previous years, I would create my needs assessment through Google Drive, through a Google form, and sent it to the teachers who put it in their Google Classroom. Staff members, I think last year I went through the language arts teachers. I'd asked them to administer a school-wide needs assessment. When I sent the link, they'd put it in there, and it took about 15 minutes for the students to complete it during class time. I had about 80% participation, and the link to the left is a link to the blank survey that I created as an example. One challenge that I've had in reviewing things over the years is that the needs assessment continuously evolved. But over the past couple of years, questions have been mostly the same, so it's easier to compare answers from year to year. The graph that's shown right now is regarding study skills. Over 100 students stated that they did not have the skills to help their academic success. So as an intervention, we ran a few organizational skills groups, but that really only directly impacted about 20 total students. Our school also started implementing AVID strategies this year to help more of the students and to build momentum of our school-wide impact. Other data that we looked at would be every other year giving the Healthy Youth Survey to our 6th and 8th graders. So we would use that data to help design interventions. I would often share some of the information with the students to show how they were, and some of the questions in the needs assessment copied or mirrored questions from the Healthy Youth Survey, so we could look at that yearly and see progress. So this process was done in October and helped guide many of the evaluation conversations that I had with my principal last year. When we did a school-wide climate survey at the end of the year, we added some of the same questions to see if there was a change in student perception. Unfortunately, because we did those at the end of the year, I didn't see the results of that survey before moving on to my building. So I'm not sure how my particular interventions impacted perception. However, we had created a lot of systems based on the data provided through my counseling program to impact the entire school.
All right, thank you again, Lisa, for sharing out with us about the importance of that school counselor-principal relationship and using that WSAC school counselor evaluation tool to guide your work. It's great to hear about the strategies you were using and the ways in which you were learning about how to best serve your kiddos. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Our third and final presenter today is Sarah Weiss, who's very nice. She is an incredible partner and colleague with me from the Washington Student Achievement Council. She's here to share with you from a middle school perspective how the College Bound Scholarship can help your systemic efforts to develop a college-going culture in middle school. So Sarah, you are on.
Great. Thanks, Kim. You stole my tagline there for a minute. But before we kind of jump into some of the system-wide supports that exist around College Bound Scholarship sign up, I want to just reiterate something that Kim just said, that the College Bound Scholarship is an incredible opportunity that we have here in the state of Washington to talk to students early in their academic career about college, and that college means a lot of different things. It doesn't necessarily mean one type of academic experience. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. But the College Bound is a way to really talk with students, especially students who may not feel that college is an option for them because of the funding elements. So before we jump into some of the system supports, I want to just do a quick overview of what the College Bound Scholarship is so that we're all on the same wavelength when we're talking about that. College Bound was established about 12 years ago in 2007. It is our early commitment of state financial aid to eligible students who sign up in middle school. Eligibility includes students who meet the free and reduced price lunch, income eligibility, foster youth, and students who are receiving basic needs assistance. The commitment of College Bound is that a student who signs up in middle school will have certain costs covered by state financial aid. These include tuition at public rates, some of the fees charged by colleges, and a small book allowance. That may come from different buckets of state financial aid. That's an important piece to remember, but the commitment is that the state will cover those costs. And the really exciting part when you're talking with students around college bound and opportunities for them once they graduate high school is that the college bound scholarship, as with the vast majority of state financial aid here in Washington, and federal for that matter, can be used at over 60 institutions here in Washington. That includes technical schools, vocational programs, career programs, 2-year and 4-year. And so having that conversation with students that there are multiple pathways and multiple opportunities for them and that there's funding associated with that is a great way to have those conversations with middle school students to engage with them. So from a technical aspect, how does the college bound application process work? We're going to talk a little bit about some systemic ways to support college bound signups. Here are basically the 4 steps to the college bound sign up process. But this kind of will set us up in the context of it. Step 1, that there are 2 ways that a student can start an application. One is online, or a counselor can start their application online. But really the most effective way to start students' applications is by the district or school upload. And that's something that in terms of talking with your principal, your administration, your district level support, if you're able to do that upload of eligible students to the WSAC portal at the district level, that means folks, counselors, you all at the building level aren't having to worry about the technology of uploading students. You're able to have those signature pages referred to as missing information letters, but you're able to have those and have those conversations with students as they're completing the sign-up process. That's a great opportunity to engage with teachers as well, to be able to go into classrooms, bring them missing information letters for those students who have them, bring our flyers for those who might not, so they can get in a sense of what the scholarship is as well. So I talked a little bit about how to start the application. It's an upload process. The WSAC portal, which is an online one-stop shop for managing your college-bound students. For those who might be working in high schools as well, or joint buildings, this is also where our FAFSA, or financial aid application data, lives. But for middle school, really it's going to be the college-bound sections of the portal. This is where that upload can happen, and again, as I said, a best practice is really to coordinate at a district level to have those free and reduced price lunch eligible students uploaded. You would immediately then be able to see them in the portal, track the completion of their college-bound application, print their letters, make sure that they get them, and then once you return them to WSAC, after some processing time, you would see those students' complete applications show up in the portal. Now, if you're a little leery about jumping into an online system called the portal, I know it's not the most creative name in the world, we do have short video tutorials available on the Ready Set Grad website, College Bound site, that can walk you through each of the functional areas of that portal. So it's pretty easy, they're pretty straightforward. We also have customer service available to help with uploads if they're your district folks or your school folks, help with the printing of letters, and really make sure that you know how to use that online system. A new update that I want to share for this academic year is something that you may be familiar with, which is legislation that passed in the past legislative session that said that after a reasonable amount of time and multiple attempts, if a student's parents are unreachable, then a counselor can sign that college-bound scholarship application. And so in response to that, we at College Bound created a form. Hopefully it's pretty straightforward for you all, but it's available at collegebound.wa.gov in the Resources for Counselors site. But that form can be returned with a complete MIL, or missing information letter, from the student. There's instructions on the form. I'm not going to go too much into detail about the specifics of it, but essentially, if the parent is unreachable after a reasonable amount of time, you've given them opportunities to reply, multiple attempts with all of the contact methods that you have, and they're still not replying, that you can, as a counselor or building administrator, can submit that application. And this is something I would encourage, again, as we're talking about larger systemic support for College Bound, is to have that conversation with your building, because administrators can also sign the form. If they're kind of coordinating efforts at the building, counselors can sign it. So whomever's working with the students on College Bound sign up essentially at the school, if they're school employees, can sign it. And so having those coordinated conversations so that you're not duplicating efforts or both sending in forms is something I would certainly recommend as well.
And Sarah, my add-on to that would be that we can sign those forms as school staff as long as we haven't received a no.
Yes.
So please be really clear about that as well, that if you're just not getting a response back and you've tried and tried, that's one thing, but if they refuse, we cannot sign. So just be really clear on that.
Yeah, and that's on the form. Thank you, Kim, for that reminder. On the form, you will need to verify that with the signature that the parents have not declined interest in the program as well. But yeah, if they're just not responding at all, that's really what this form is about, is to still give that student an opportunity with the program.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, and one final piece that I wanted to mention is really how do we support our undocumented students when we're talking about college and career readiness. And the College Bound Scholarship, students do not need to, they're not required to supply a Social Security number when they apply. There are ways that undocumented students through residency requirements are able to receive College Bound, as well as several other state financial aid programs. And so it's important to inform students and families that they may be eligible for in-state tuition. There's state financial aid opportunities for our undocumented students. There are opportunities through dual credit to start saving some money and get college credit when they go to high school. But mainly and above all, I think to normalize and make sure that you're being inclusive when talking about college with students is that there are opportunities here in Washington State for our undocumented students to access higher education, both by enrolling but also the funding to support their accessing the programs. Always a good reminder, whether we're talking with undocumented students or students who are citizens or their parents, maybe mixed status households, is to ensure that we're including language, as many languages as possible, and every school has a different demographic in what languages may be spoken by families. So provide translated materials as much as possible. And again, show that you're here to support those students, and I think doing those first few points does demonstrate that. And again, a reminder that the college and career readiness conversation absolutely can and should include resources and undocumented students in the conversations, because we do have opportunities for them here in Washington State.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. I want to just piggyback on that a little bit. I've had some administrators and other staff who contacted me and said, you know, we're not supposed to be able to identify these students, so how are we supposed to let them know? And I think, as Sarah mentioned, this is why this webinar is around systemic level supports for students, because career and college readiness really is a systems issue. And so that's where it's really important for us when we're looking at how we're providing information to students and families, that we're providing really concrete information on all these options and inviting those students who have questions or see themselves in those different types of opportunities to come let us know how we can support them. Because I do know that that is a concern around, what do we do? We're not supposed to be able to identify them and call them out.
Yeah, Kim, that's a great point, and I almost liken it similar to what I was mentioning earlier about the fact that there are over 60 types of colleges and universities in Washington that students can access some form of higher ed. Yep. We're not talking, when we're talking with students about college, we're not talking necessarily about one specific, we shouldn't be talking about one specific pathway or one specific track. Just like when we're talking about students and talking with students, we don't want to make any assumptions that students are from a certain background or have a certain status, if you will. And so in my mind, I liken the two. I hope you're seeing my train of thought here, but in my mind, I liken the two in that we never want to make assumptions about who students are or what they're thinking or what their best pathway might be.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you very much, Sarah. We are down to about the last 5 minutes or so of today's webinar, so want to just invite you again, if you have any burning questions that have come up for any of our presenters, they're all still on the line, and we can try to get those answered while we are still with you. Just want to kind of really quickly share out some of the takeaways that I believe were really evident in the messages that our presenters were sharing with us today. So I really appreciated Sydney's plug for us to help our staffs and our school support personnel really look beyond the behavior to the student behind the behavior and what may be going on with them and how can we help them as opposed to just addressing a behavior issue. And then really, as always, our need to partner with our teachers and our staff when we're working on ways to support kids. Anything we're doing in the classroom is going to reinforce what we're doing in our offices as other support staff. I really heard some key messages from Lisa with regards to that evaluation tool that WSAC has created around the key relationship with administrators. We know that's true all across the board in K-12 education, but our administrators are really great options for us to build that mentoring potential and some advocacy around our program, using data to tell our story. How can we use those pictures to craft a message, and using needs assessments to guide our goals. So we're really looking for what are our students interested in and needing, and then how can I respond to provide those services. So really appreciated those messages from Lisa. And then Sarah, as always, really love this idea of the portal can help. I know when I was at Olympia High School, that FAFSA portal made such a huge difference for me in supporting my students. Because I could really look and see who actually was just missing a signature or who just needed to fix one piece on their application, and then go to those kids with that direct line of support, and how key it is that we're communicating to all of our students the opportunities that they have beyond our K-12 education system and how we can support them in preparing for those opportunities, even when they may not know yet as a middle schooler that that's what they might want to do. So we do have a question that's come up, and I want to give a chance for Ronnie to let us know what we've got.
First, we've got one that says, how long do you set the timer for Tier 3?
Oh, 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
So I give students 5 minutes. I used to have one of my tools was, do you need more time? But I had a student that kept picking that, so I took it off as one of the options. So I just do 5 minutes now. And I did have a little gal that came in, and she said, "Oh, I don't want to go to class." And what I say to them is, "Oh, okay, well, one of the rules of my office is if you don't go to class, then you can't come back in tomorrow." And I don't know, it just seems to work. I do have snacks too, so I'll say pick a snack and then let's go to class and then you can come back. But if you don't go to class, then you don't get to come back to my office. And I think it's fun enough in there, or they really enjoy it, that they just go to class. And I say it really sweet, and I don't know, it just works. So I haven't had that issue for some reason.
All right, thank you. On the screen, you'll see some other resources we just wanted to throw out as some evidence-based and best practice resources for you. CASEL, of course, is the leading national group that supports social-emotional learning. There's some teacher practices, whole page full of links for you if Sanford Harmony wasn't resonating, or for any reason that's not working in your district, here's some other opportunities. They did have a great video for parents around social-emotional learning that I found very helpful in helping parents understand what that means. And then, of course, in Washington, Ron Hertel here at OSPI is our lead advocate around social-emotional learning, and I've linked you to an opportunity for free online learning. The SEL curriculum that aligns with our state standards is linked here for you. And then, as I promised, I put a link to the video on the need for more school counselors, generally speaking, but also highlighting our great Sydney Reed, who's here with us today. So that's the social-emotional learning. What other, you have another burning question, Ronnie, real quick?
It just came up about more counselors. So
Yeah.
someone is asking, I know the governor supports more counselors, but do you foresee legislative action to address the inability of some counselors to follow the ASCA model? I was in a district that was ASCA aligned in another state, but it took the legislature to make it illegal to have school counselors as test coordinators for all districts to be able to follow this. Rural K-12 schools, et cetera, are really going to have a difficult time financially, I believe.
Yeah, and what I can just say on that as a sidebar is the Washington School Counselor Association is really advocating on your behalf right now for not only more school counselors, but school counselors doing the right work. And when we say the right work, we are definitely pointing to the links I gave to you earlier to the Washington School Counselor Framework that's aligned with ASCA, it's aligned with our state standards. So I know the bill that OSPI is putting forward that has information in it around asking for more school counselors has also got some draft language around alignment with best practices for school counseling. So as always, we have to see how that fleshes out in the legislative session, but this is the second year OSPI has been advocating for more school counselors. The governor is supporting that as well. And so we obviously have opportunities for you to connect with the Washington School Counselor Association if you would like to, and learn more about how you can be a voice in that effort. And then just wanted to point out a few extra things that we put out here for you with regards to Lisa's presentation. And there is a toolkit that was developed years ago by the National Office of School Counselor Advocacy, which is no longer in existence, but their kit is. The College Board actually hosted on their website. It's got some great practical tools for developing those strong principal-counselor relationships. We do have the school counselor evaluation from WSAC, which is linked here for you, and Lisa was gracious to put her contact information on there for you if you have specific questions for her around her experience with trying to implement that, as she's on the WSAC board and still serving in that role. And then I wanted to also just give another shout out to Trish Hatch. Dr. Hatch is also a leading expert in using data for school counseling, so I've linked you to her most recent book if you're looking at how do I get into that multi-tiered, multi-domained system of support with school counseling and use of data. And then Sarah's got a few other things to share with you real quick, and we'll wrap up. I know we're over time, and if you have to leave, we understand, but we've got just about another minute with you to finish this up.
Yeah, and so finally, just two kind of centers for resources around the College Bound Scholarship that I wanted to point out. On collegebound.wa.gov, there is a resources for counselor page. On there are FAQs for counselors. There's those portal tutorial videos I was mentioning, and none of them are longer than 6 or 7 minutes, so they're pretty quick, and they focus on each kind of functional area. There's other training information. There's program materials in multiple languages that are both for print and ordering to use with your students, as well as that counselor signature form that I was talking about. And then the actual WSAC portal, to access it and do all of the things we spoke about, you can do it from that short link right there. And then finally, Kim and my contact information from both OSPI and the Student Achievement Council, and a reminder that this webinar by the end of the month will be posted on our Ready, Set, Grad Wednesday webinar site. And then we hope that you'll join us for our next webinar on February 6th about the high school and beyond plan.
Yep, and that'll be a broader conversation around career and college readiness and dipping back into that middle school as well again, and possibly even some highlights on elementary level and how to set the stage for students to have a great K-12 experience. So thank you again for joining us. We hope that you will go back and pull this up off of the Ready, Set, Grad website and share it out with your colleagues who couldn't join us today. And we look forward to seeing you again in a few weeks. Thanks so much.